I'm Ed Adams, and you're listening to the AFCA Podcast. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the AFCA Podcast. And on this episode, we speak with the man who provides creative vision at Unanimous Media, co-founder Erick Peyton. Now I'll give you the details after the break. The AFCA Podcast is sponsored by Morgan Stanley Global Sports and Entertainment.
When he spoke to me, I was on the floor looking up at him from under the table. He just stopped and he said, did I shoot you yet? And I said, no. And he said, I'm not going to. I'm going to leave you here to tell a story.
That was a clip from the powerful and soul-stirring 2019 documentary Emmanuel. This award-winning film chronicles the tragic event that took place at the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, where 9 innocent churchgoers were murdered at the hand of a lone gunman. Now, Emmanuel is one of the first projects distributed by NBA superstar Steph Curry and his partner Erick Peyton at their production company, Unanimous Media. Now, since the company was founded in 2018, this duo has been busy producing inspirational content that goes above the rim, so to speak, as they venture into new directions. The company has been in the news a lot lately. Recently, Unanimous inked a first-look deal with Amazon's audio division, Audible. And there's lots of hype around 2 shows that the company has in the works: an updated animated remake of the hit series Good Times, and a series based on the critically acclaimed film Finding Forrester. Now, to understand the vision and drive at Unanimous Media, you need to sit down with co-founder and chief creative officer Erick Peyton. Peyton has literally been creating content most of his life. And with several producing and directing credits to his name, the Florida native, along with his partner Curry, have a vision with a purpose: to tell unique stories and bring inspirational content to every single media channel. So I had a chance to speak with Erick recently via Zoom to talk about his start in the business, the inspiration behind Unanimous Media, and some of the projects the company is working on. Erick, welcome to the AFCA Podcast, man.
What's up, man? Glad to be here. Good to see you.
Yes. Sure. All right. So the one thing I was doing when I was reading your information and reading your bio, it says that you've been creating content since you were since age 11. And I wanted to just kind of talk about that, man. Like, tell me about what it was that made you want to pick up the camera.
So at 11, I'm like a dreamer, right? Like, with the way that I think and I'm a daydreamer. I wasn't that bad. I didn't know this till I got older. My mom told me I wasn't a good athlete. I thought I was a good athlete. You know what I'm saying? Like, she let me grow up thinking I was good. But then one day she sat me down like 20 something. She was like, yeah, you weren't that good. So I think I always just really, I wanted to tell stories. My imagination was always big. I think that, and that's what led me to filmmaking. When I was 11, there was this toy camera that came out that you were able to edit with on the camera and then broadcast it on this little TV. And oh man, I wanted Santa to get me that so bad. And so Santa came through. And so that's why I always say I started editing and sort of making films right around 11, just because that's what me and my friends would do. Is we would go out into the woods and just make silly little films. So yeah, man, that's why I think that's what pulled me towards it. It was just my imagination. Like, I wanted to get the pictures out of my head, you know what I mean? And really see it on screen. And so that's what started my journey.
All right. Well, now hold on. Now, what kind of pictures did you have? Like, were you doing like these like adventure films? Were these like, serious dramas, were they crime dramas? What was going on in this?
I really didn't have any category for them. It was really just me being silly. You know what I mean? I felt like if I could put a genre to them now, when I watched them, they were definitely comedies. Like, just me and my friends making up little bits and recording them, and just, we had this one thing where we would just try to do a chase scene, but the chase scene didn't have anything to do with anything. Like I wasn't there yet. I wasn't mature enough to be able to put together sort of scenes together, but we would record little chase scenes and then watch them back, and we couldn't believe that it looked like we were really chasing each other, because we would shoot it from different angles, and I would be running, and then I would grab the camera and then record backwards and then watch him chasing me, and then we'd cut it in camera. And so so it was really these little vignettes that we thought were so amazing. So yeah, that's what we would be creating.
Okay, now you were doing creation of content, not just then, but you also did it in high school and throughout your career. I mean, growing up. So talk to me about how did you get from there to here?
Well, I don't believe there's really any steps to get where I'm at. I think there's a lot of hard work. You know, if I could outline if I could outline the steps, I would give people those steps and say like, hey, you got to do this and this and this. But there really are no steps. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of prayer from all different people around me. I think that just believing in myself and believing in the vision, and you know, people often tell me that I don't really have a ceiling to my thoughts. And I've never thought that way, but I've always believed that I would be in this vision. Like, I've always believed I'd be making movies and making TV and making media. And there's never been a backup plan to it. So if I could say the one thing that, you know, everybody says this, just believe in yourself. You know, I think if you start there and you believe in yourself, somehow I think you'll find a way. And I think that's basically what I did, you know. So I mean, obviously, not obviously. So in high school, just to talk more logistically, like in high school, so I started making films at 11, right? And then in 8th grade, I joined a film production class, and I continued to hone that skill. In high school, I joined another. I actually started the film program in my high school, and it was called TV production then. And then kept editing, and then I knew I wanted to go to film school, and I went to film school, and I learned what film school sort of teaches you, and that's really like think outside the box, create your own path. You know, there really are no rules in filmmaking, and so then I started making music videos, and that was really like when I was younger. Like I loved music videos, so right out of college I started making music videos, producing them and directing them. Did that for a little while, looked at my bank account and was like, this is not necessarily paying the bills. So I went into more of a traditional space, which is like a creative agency and production company. Got some really good clients like Nike and Nissan and Scion, and just started really doing that traditional sort of production development and creative. And that brought me here, like met SC, pitched him on this vision, and you know, that was sort of the birth of Unanimous.
Man, that's awesome. I'm gonna write all that down, pass that out to everybody I made. Like, you don't know how to do it like this.
Man, it was all just work, man. It was just work. In my old office, I used to just have work on it. Like I literally painted a mural that just said work on it, period. And like, if you just get to work and you really look at it like a blessing to be doing what you're doing every single day, I believe you can accomplish anything you really want. And, you know, because I'm from the South and Florida and Mississippi, you see people digging ditches and you see people doing construction, you see people doing physical labor, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that wasn't my path. You know, I wanted to make movies, and so I always look at what I'm doing as a blessing, like sitting in my office reading scripts and giving feedback and being able to talk to SC about you know, different concepts and ideating on that. So yeah. It's just about work, man.
I feel you, man. So you mentioned, you know, you make this pitch to Steph. So let's talk about Unanimous Media, and what exactly is its mission?
I mean, our mission is basically, in the simplest form, to inspire through media. right? That's what we want to do. Our silos are family, faith, and sports, and those come from Stephen himself, right? He's a man of faith. He's this big sports icon, and he's a family man. So those are the silos that we really focus on. What we also try to do though is put sugar in the medicine a little bit, right? I think you're gonna see our content roll out, and you know, obviously Holy Moly's out there, and that's really a family show. But the rest of the content that is beginning to roll out, it won't be so. Not that Holy Moly's on the nose, but it'll be a little bit of that sugar in the medicine sort of style. Like Good Times is amazing, and it is because we have those EPs of Seth MacFarlane, Norman Lear, and Stephen Curry. It's a little bit of all of them, and that's exciting, right? But ultimately, it's a family show. Like it's about this family that has to keep their head above water.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So that's our mission, man, is to really inspire through family, faith, and sports content.
I knew that you were in the family and faith, lane, but I didn't really quite understand always the why, So I wanted to talk about the connection with faith-based films. And one of the things that Steph said in an interview, he said that he wanted to tell faith stories honestly. And I wanted to know, can you talk to me about what does that mean? Like, how would you tell those stories, and why does it need to be told that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Unanimous, there's a lot of growth in the faith-based genre. We feel like you could tell faith-based stories that make you cry, make you laugh, that have action in them. And I think that's really our goal, is to sort of break the mold as we start to really develop our faith-based slate. Obviously Breakthrough was amazing and we love it, and we'll always do projects like that. We love Devon. But I think as we grow our slate, I think there's more and more swings we could take and genres we can break that still have characters of faith within them. So that's how we look at the faith-based landscape.
Awesome. So let's talk about your roster a little bit. I mean, you've got a lot of projects that are already on networks and streaming, but you're already expanding. Can we talk a little bit about how Unanimous is expanding its fingerprint?
Yeah. So I mean, the word now is ecosystem, right? Like that's what we're really trying to create, an ecosystem of inspiration. And the first couple of years when we sort of launched, it was really about TV and film, and we sort of authenticated ourselves in TV and film. So then it was podcasting, and so I wanted to go out and I wanted to find out, or we wanted to find a big, huge partner in podcasting, and that's why you see the Audible First Look deal. That's why we got the Audible First Look deal. So, we have a couple other things rolling out that you'll be surprised by as well that'll expand this ecosystem. But really, it's about, creating an ecosystem of inspiration and allowing, voices of color and diverse voices to leverage it. Myself, and we're a purpose over profit company. So our purpose really is to inspire and also create pathways for these diverse voices. So as we expand, that's what we're trying to do. And so that's what the Audible deal was about. So and there'll be some other things that aren't quite closed yet, but are close, that'll come out, and it'll be more and more. And you'll see Unanimous is really about creating a family studio, that can generate intellectual properties and really create pathways for those diverse voices.
Okay, so this was going to go to my second question, but you just kind of answered it for me. But it sounds to me that when you think about some of the content that Steph has done, even in the game show stuff, it's still kind of sports adjacent. But a lot of the things that you're talking about, especially when you look at what you're developing right now, you're really jumping outside of that sports lane. Why did you decide to make that shift? Was it kind of like you were saying, you're building the footprint of Unanimous and you needed to kind of do this, or was there something in your strategy that made you decide to go this way?
I think it's just, we love the sports vertical, but we have two other ones. So we really need to remain disciplined to all three.
Mm-hmm.
And so once Holy Moly got stood up on its feet, it's like, okay, how do we do something in faith? How do we do something in family? And so I think my responsibility sort of is making sure the team is focusing on all three silos. So that's why we have some things in the faith in the sports space that's going to roll out too. But when you really look at that space and you look at what really creates an event, it has to be so premium. And that's what we realized after the first couple of years. It's like it has to be really premium, especially in the follow doc and the format space. It has to be international. And so we took a step back and cleaned up the slate a little bit. And we're like, what is creating an event? What can we really drive eyes to? And so that's probably why we haven't announced some of the things that are coming out, which there's some things coming out that are closing up really soon that are in the sports vertical that will feel like an event. But to answer your question, it's just staying disciplined to the silos. But I think the hardest thing to do in media is to kind of stay disciplined. And I think we really sort of pride ourselves on staying, because we have offers from people come to us from everything outside of our silos, and it's hard to say no, because it's like, oh, this is greenlit, this is that, this has this person attached. But we want to stay disciplined to our silos, and we want to make sure we're inspiring. So, maybe in the future, maybe when we're 5-10 years old, we can kind of expand those silos out. But right now, family, faith, and sports is where we really focus on.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that, because let me follow up with you on that, because you were just talking about to keep those things in those silos and find something that you were saying was premium. Knowing what you know now, how do you vet the content or opportunities that come your way?
I mean, there is really no formula, and that was another thing that the first couple years our slate was so big, because we sort of just followed what we thought we should, how we thought we should package, right? And what we learned was we are a purpose over profit company, so it's like we should be able to package things from our heart. You know what I mean? Like, if we love this writer, let's help this writer, get their show on the air. And so I think when we look at things from the standpoint of, obviously, does it fit our silos? Does it create an event for the person watching it, or for the audience? And one of the rules, and this is just a little bit of our secret sauce, is like everything that we shop, 5 networks have to be it has to fit at least 5 streamers or networks. So like it can't be singular. You know what I mean? So if it's a piece of sports, it needs to be able to be shopped between 5 different streamers and network. It just can't be sports networks. And so that's a little nugget of sort of the inside of those 3 things of how we really approach our development process.
All right, that's cool. That's pretty cool. I like that. Yeah. I mean, that's so one of the things I definitely want to do is talk about some of the projects that I've read in multiple places that really have me kind of excited. So one of them is, you're taking on one of my favorite movies, Finding Forrester. A couple of things I read about it, but I want to hear from you. What can you tell me about the project?
Well, I mean, I can't tell you that much because we're still writing it, and I think I could tell you that TJ and Rashid, the writers on it, and Charlotte and Tim Story from the Story Company, are amazing partners, and I could tell you that the characters. We totally flip Forrester on the character's head. I won't tell you. Yeah. So, and I think that's really exciting, but it still has the DNA of the original movie. But yeah, man, it's super exciting. I wish I could tell you more, but I don't want to give away anything, and NBC would call me up and kill me. But it is loud. It's very much still feels like it fits our are silos. The characters are big and contemporary. I can tell you that, like, for sure. And there's still basketball in it.
Mm-hmm.
And the storylines definitely lend themselves. The storylines are a cultural reflection of today, and I think that's probably its biggest compliment. Like, we didn't try to just reinvent the movie. We really, the whole team really focused on, okay, what does this story feel like today? And TJ and Rashid just did an amazing job at sort of like elevating that and cracking that wide open.
So let's talk about some of these other things. You did mention the Audible deal, and that was pretty exciting to read, that you got this first look deal. And you don't really hear like first look deals for audio content like this. Mm-hmm. So talk to me, like, why did you decide how did this happen? And did you pitch them? They pitched you, and what's going on?
No, we went out to the market with the podcast slate. And the reason why we choose partners like Audible and Sony and you'll, as the other sort of announcements sort of roll out, we'll sort of announce some of the other partnerships that we're getting into. But the reason why we do that is to curb our growing pains. I think it's we approach everything with humility, so we don't have to act like we know everything. I think that Audible is amazing in the podcast space. And the people over there, it's a great team. And even as we develop, the greatest sports story never told in 15 minutes from home, you could just tell you learn something every time you chat with them. So that's why we chose Audible, and that's why we developed these partnerships with these experts in the industry.
I love the idea of the greatest story never told. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I could definitely talk about that. I think so. You're right. There is a ton of sports content in the podcast space. So I was, with the team brewing about like, how can we approach it from a different angle? And it's really like the moments in between the big moments that I really want to hear about. Like when I'm, like when you talk about like playing high school ball, it's not necessarily talking about like the guy that ran the touchdown back, right? It's the moment that the coach, like the speech that the coach gave before it, and what motivated that touchdown. And I think that's really what we want to. Those are the stories we want to tell. We also want to tell, the stories about the days off, before the World Series, or the stories about the sports adjacent stories, right? Like Valentino Dixon is one of the stories we want to explore for the podcast, and his story is so amazing. It's about how he was wrongfully convicted. He spent 27 years in prison, but he basically got out by painting golf courses. And Golf Magazine picked it up, and then people heard his story, and some attorneys picked up his story, and really, years later, he was able to walk out of prison a free man, and I think that's a sports story to us. Mm-hmm. He's a huge golf fanatic, and he was painting golf courses, and so those are the types of things we'll be telling for a greatest sports story never told.
Oh, that sounds really cool, man. All right, we got to talk about more of your stuff. Like,
okay.
I was really excited to see that you're working on this comedy, One and Done, that you're working with Martin Lawrence. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So One and Done is an amazing story that I'm producing with Brendan O'Brien. And honestly, it was a pitch that he brought in, and we just fell in love with it. And, this wasn't one of those things that there was a ton of development around it. Like, sometimes it just happens, right? It was one of the first projects we saw. Brendan brought it in. The studio loved it, and we just started packaging it. And Martin was one of the first people we went to, and Martin came aboard, and now we're into script. And so that's how it came about. It wasn't. There was no like a lot, like Good Times is a much longer sort of journey. Good Times took a while to put together. But this one was pretty clean. So we're excited for the people to see it. The script is coming along, and yeah, no, it's Martin is amazing, and I think the movie's going to be awesome.
The one thing that everybody wants to know about is Good Times, right? Because you're breaking the mold on this one too.
Yeah. Good Times was. It's funny. Our office at Sony is next door to Norman, so Mr. Lear comes in the office. I forgot how old he is now, but he's maybe 97, 98. Comes into the office every day. And it goes back to that theme of work, right? Like you look at Mr. Lear working, you're like, oh, I got to get to work, you know? And so anyways, he comes into the office and it obviously sparks thought. It's like, how can we work with him? How can we work with Norman? And we were sitting in a little creative session one day with my with one of the executives, Janelle, and that it just came up, like, what if we did an animated version of Good Times? And I was like, yeah, what if we did an animated version of Good Times? And then I just walked over and we just asked them, and they freaking loved it. And so then the work comes in, right? It's like, okay, they love it. Now we have to package it to live up to what Good Times really is. And so Brent Miller, the president of Act 3, and he was the one that called Seth, right? So he called Erica over at Fuzzy Door, and then the package just started to build, right? And that's what happens when something special when you know something is special, it just begins to build, and the world just sort of like opens up for it, and doors sort of open up and ideas start to come, and it starts to create itself. And that's really what happened with Good Times, because who would have thought Norman, Seth, and Stefan would have been part of a package. And then we have Carl Jones as a showrunner who is unbelievable. And so we started taking pictures, and Carl came in, and his pitch was so funny. Like, it was, I mean, I wish I could tell you how we're cracking this thing open, but it is amazing. And I really do. I was talking to Stefan about it the other day, and I was like, this feels special, my man. And he was reading the outlines. He was like, yeah, no, it does. And so that's really the story about it. And that journey took probably a year and a half. So it wasn't quick at all. And yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of insight on Good Times.
Well, I mean, I have to ask this one question, because I'm sure you've approached this already. Is that not just that it's a treasure for people of color, right? This series is just beloved, but it's dealing with some very sensitive and serious subject matter for people of color. And I was curious, like, when you went to the table, what were some of the things that you wanted to make sure were addressed, or just kind of, if you can share that?
Yeah, I mean, this animated series is unapologetically Black and deals with Black issues 110%. And it's still something for everybody to watch, for sure. But it is the spiritual successor of Good Times. So it's obviously going to deal with those socially relevant moments. And we don't shy away from that at all. But it also has some Seth MacFarlane in it, right? So it's like it's gonna make you laugh, but as well as make you think. So it is. I'm so excited for it to be rolled out. It's definitely on schedule. Netflix is extremely happy about it. Excited for it. And yeah, no.
There you go.
Absolutely.
There you go. All right. My last question, and I just indulge me on this one, because I was thinking about, when we look back and we think about 2020 and we think about the pandemic and everything that's happened around us, the one thing that has really affected most of us in this industry has been, we can't get to theaters, right? And I was just kind of curious, when you look at where you are and what you're doing, have you and Unanimous kind of thought about when things are safe again, and when people can go back. Do you have a plan, or have you thought much about how you can help to kind of get people back into the theaters, or do you have any plans for that?
I mean, for us, it's really about trying to create, it goes back to the eventizing content, right? Like our films, what we try to do is create a family event that everybody can sort of watch. So I think to answer your question, if we stay, again, disciplined to what we're trying to do, hopefully our films will bring people back to the theater when it's time. And that's the way that I approach it, because I grew up, going to 2 and 3 movies a day, and I miss that experience, and I'd be lying if I'd be lying if I didn't tell you, like, I want my kids to have that experience, and I want people to have that experience when watching our content. There's nothing like getting some popcorn and going to see a film. That's how I think we'll contribute, is really just creating films that tell amazing stories and hopefully inspire an event, that everybody wants to see these movies or these films.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been asking everyone on the show this one question as we sign off. What did you learn about yourself that you didn't know during this pandemic?
I learned that my family, I learned more about my family in this pandemic and how much I love being around them than I ever could imagine, right? Like I am, right now we're in Tahoe. So we rented a little cabin, and it's just us and my 2 kids and the wife. And like, it's just us, you know what I mean? And it's awesome, because we're forced to sort of create memories. And like, that's probably the thing that I learned, is like, sometimes I think before the pandemic, I was so busy, and you go to the meetings and you go to the office and you do so many things, and you're getting home at 7 and 8, and the kids are already in bed and stuff like that. And so I think the thing that I learned was really prioritizing even the 15, 20 minutes you have with your kids and your family. And so that's really what I learned. And I don't think I don't think I'll ever not do it again, So like, even if it's only like 30 minutes, like going to baseball or going for the bike rides and things like that. I think I hope that makes sense, but I think that's really what I learned, is like truly putting family first on like a daily basis. Like everybody of course I'm putting family first as far as like how, as a breadwinner and a protector and all the things that sort of comes with being a father and a husband, but also like on a daily basis, right? Like it's the stories and the bike rides and the throwing the baseball and like the little things. And so, yeah, I definitely learned that.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. We forget, it's always the little things, right, that become the big things.
Yeah.
Always and every time. Yeah.
For sure. Absolutely.
Well, I have to say, man, thank you so much, Erick, for your time. This has been great. I'm really excited about your slate. I can't wait to get my copies to watch before everybody else does.
For sure. Hold me to it.
Right. I was like, I'm watching Good Times right now. I don't know what you're doing. Well, listen, enjoy your time in Tahoe, man. And again, thank you so much for doing this.
Hit me if you need anything. Y'all be good.
All right. I appreciate you, man. Take care. That was Erick Peyton, co-founder and chief creative officer at Unanimous Media. Now, if you want to know more about the projects he and Steph Curry are working on, check out their IMDb page. And if you want to watch the documentary Emmanuel and the feature film Breakthrough, you can find them on Amazon Prime Video. And that's our show. Thanks again to Erick Peyton and his team for making this interview happen. And did you know that Africa was in the news again? Well, yep, we have been. Recently, Africa partnered with Comcast and launched the Black Experience channel on Xfinity. The channel features curated content that highlights classics and provides platforms for next-gen filmmakers, so be sure to check it out. So until next time, keep your head up.